Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the African Exodus show. I'm your host, Tierney Cherie, here to you with a new video. Before we get started with today's subject, I want to remind you all, if you have not already, please do add yourself in my Telegram channel. The link is down below. I update Telegram anytime I post a video, so if YouTube ever cancels my account, I can still talk to you all. So please do add yourself there. Today we're going to talk about Freemasonry. And it's funny, the Most High sometimes will do things in order to make you redo your work. I actually already recorded the videos that I'm going to be doing, this one in part 2 to this Freemasonry conversation. But I believe he wanted me to redo it so that I could spend a little more time and get a little bit more detailed as far as how we're going to discuss this. But we're talking again about the hidden history of the United States of America. If you don't know, the United States is a Masonic experiment. Freemasons say this. The founders know this. This country was literally created out of Freemasonry. So if you want to know what Freemasonry is, maybe I'll do a more in-depth video about that. Just the big overarching thing you should understand is Freemasons are a secret society. They present themselves as being one way, yet they have a whole nother legacy that they don't talk about. They have their roots with the Knights Templar, who we discussed. They also have 33 levels, those upper levels, the upper 33-degree Masons, 32, those upper levels are the people who are really behind a lot of things that are happening in this society. Those are the ones who actually know more about what the Freemasons are about. The lower levels are basically kept in the dark about the actual legacy of their organization. But I encourage you, do more research. And again, I'm sure we can get more into that, the Most High willing. So we're going to talk about America, though, in that regard. What would a secret society have to do with the United States, right? The United States occurred spontaneously. People who were oppressed by Britain, people who wanted freedom and liberty, all these things were told in U.S. history class. Understand none of that stuff is true. Everything is planned. Everything is foretold, everything is foreseen by people, by entities, and you will never know because you're only told one narrative or one side of the story. So we're going to just talk in this particular video about the United States founders, what they were involved in as far as Freemasonry. The next video will get into more detail about some of the Masonic interwoven conspiracies inside of the United States government, and we're going to get more in detail about that. I'm going to read through 2 articles in order to go through this subject. I think these articles hit on basically all the areas that I know of. I'm sure there's more things to know, but because of that, I think that they're a good synopsis about this issue. So we're going to first start with this one article. This is 10 intriguing Masonic connections to the founders of America. Manly P. Hall stated clearly in his book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, that the U.S. was nothing less than a Masonic experiment designed to allow Freemasons to dominate the world. Now, that might not be told what you're told about Freemasons if you ask a Freemason, especially the lower degrees. I mean, they might sincerely not know that. As far as the upper degrees, they know what their organization's about. But that understand is the goal of these secret societies. They're not manipulating us because it's just fun. They're doing it because they have an agenda that they're trying to achieve, and we are in the way of their agenda. The United States Constitution, this is number 10, is based on Masonic writings. The Constitution of the United States has many links to the writings of British Freemason James Anderson in his 1723 book, The Constitutions of Freemasons, which was edited and reprinted by Benjamin Franklin, who, if you don't know, was a Freemason, 11 years later in 1734. It's largely agreed that this was the first Masonic book to be printed in the United States, and its influence on many notable Americans of its time is seemingly profound. In terms of the U.S. Constitution, which came into effect in March 1789, some sections appear to have been lifted in its entirety from the Masonic text, particularly those concerning free speech, rights to citizenship, and each man having a vote. Those things were lifted directly from the Freemason Constitution. Let's go to number 9 because I want to get through this article quickly so we can spend more time on the other one. Satanic layout of Washington, D.C. Yes, if you look at the architecture, in fact, there's one, maybe I'll be able to show it to you in this video that I just noticed. There's so much Masonic imagery in Washington, D.C., as well as in other U.S. cities. So the layout of America's capital is certainly intriguing, not solely because of the precise measurement, symmetry, and angles involved in the planning of the streets. According to some, the entire layout of the city makes up Masonic symbols, in particularly the goat head pentagram, more associated with satanic cults. Now, why would a Christian country have a satanic symbol inside of their layout? Why would they have a Washington monument if you don't know that it's 666 feet high? Maybe that Christian country has more to it than they're actually saying. Maybe they have beliefs that they're not admitting. But let's go to number 8. The U.S. Capitol is a rebuild of Solomon's Temple. Inside the building, under the dome, is a detailed painting of George Washington, where he is portrayed as a deity, described as the American Christ. Interestingly, Jesus's, or Yeshua's, own divinity was often portrayed the same way by Europeans, of course. The cornerstone of the Capitol building was also put into place only after a full Masonic ritual had been conducted, presided over by President George Washington, no less. Oh yeah, we'll get into more detail about George Washington, but George Washington was a big Freemason, another one of your country's founders. But let's talk about Albert Pike and the Knights of the Garden Circle, a controversial figure in U.S. history, perhaps even more so in the current political climate of 2017. That's when all the statues and Confederate monuments were being torn down. Is Albert Pike, who served as a general for the Confederate Army during the Civil War. He was a well-known, even revered Freemason and a person of huge influence in such circles. In fact, at the time, Pike was the head of the Scottish Rite in the Southern jurisdiction. Pike has unproven connections to the Knights of the Golden Circle, a group that was a forerunner of the Ku Klux Klan and would assist the Confederacy during the internal conflicts. Some accusations even claim that Pike was a rampant Satanist, which even the Masonic connections and apparent satanic layout of Washington, D.C. is perhaps not so much of a stretch or a figure of the imagination if you buy into the secret society theories. One more interesting controversy regarding Albert Pike is an apparent hoard of gold buried away since the end of the Civil War, although this gold has never been recovered as far as anyone knows. Legend has it that it's stashed at the end of the war, perhaps in the event the Confederate Army might rise again. It's important for you to know. Confederates rising again, something that is very much possible, particularly as we see America on the verge of collapse in many ways. But the Masonic ceremony of the cornerstone of the White House, yes, much like the cornerstone of the Capitol building was subject to Masonic ritual, so was the cornerstone of the White House. George Washington would also oversee this ritual, as well as the overall design and layout of the White House, but he did not live in it for himself. Many of the builders of the White House also had strong Freemason connections. The next one, during the inauguration of the U.S. president, this is number 5. The reasons for this largely with George Washington, who was preparing to take the oath, stated that he must have a Bible to do so in line with his Masonic beliefs. So basically to putting the hands on the Bible. Number 4, though, many of the founders were Freemasons. Now, this is important to know. 14 U.S. presidents were known as known Freemasons, and that accounts for about a third of all the presidents in U.S. history. Known Freemasons, and also keep in mind there are other secret societies that don't identify with as Freemason, but they are of the same cloth, and they are of the same powers, of the same meetings. They know these people, they're interlinked with these people, so don't be distracted by the Freemason label necessarily. The proportion of the founding fathers of the United States who were Freemasons would bear similar numbers. For example, of the 39 men who signed their names to the United States Constitution, 13 were known Freemasons. Several years earlier, a total of 56 men would sign the Declaration of Independence, 9 of whom were Freemasons, including widely respected Benjamin Franklin and John Hancock. Franklin in particular is regarded as an immensely important figure in America during his time. Although he didn't serve as a president, his influence on the U.S. as a whole was just as great. He was considered a top scientist and a key intermediate for politicians. He also was the only person to have signed his name to the Declaration of Independence, Constitution, and the Treaty of Paris. Don't worry, we'll talk more about Ben Franklin. Number 3, obviously the one-eye symbol on the dollar. We're going to get more into the dollar inside of, I believe, the 4th part to this Hidden History of America series. So I'm just going to, reference it. But the all-seeing eye on the dollar, I think we know about that. Number 2, an interesting thing, a Masonic doomsday. It is absolute basic form. The theory suggests that the signing of the Declaration of Independence in 1776 began a 13-year period, which, when matched up against the dimensions of the Great Pyramid and longitudinal lines of the Earth, correspond to key events in history. Oh, and it's counting down to 2022, they said, when something will happen, be at the end of days or the start of a new age. Food for thought. Are we in a new age? Last but not least, though, Sir Francis Bacon, who you should understand the way that this man literally created America. According to Thomas Jefferson, Sir Francis Bacon, one of the most influential people in the world, he was a known Freemason member of various secret societies. Bacon is regarded by some researchers to be the real founding father of America. Yes, did you know that? Bacon was a keen researcher of esoteric knowledge, and it was his vision to create a new Atlantis, a utopia in the Americas. Although Bacon was prominent in British politics, he would send his son to America to be his eyes in the new land. It is claimed that it was the teachings of Bacon that would result in his vision being realized through the founding fathers' actions. A Newfoundland stamp revealed in 1910 had the following inscription on it: Lord Bacon, the guiding spirit in the colonization scheme. This would seem to suggest that his influence on the New World was profound, to say the least. Just side note, it's just very interesting. They always called America the New World. And what are we talking about now? The New World Order. Because obviously America is not a new place. It's not a new world. But what were they talking about when they said that? Were they referencing the New World Order? Just a thought, food for thought. So I want to go to this article now. If I could take a sip of my tea. The secret founding of America and why it matters today. So let's just jump right in. In the 16th century, Sir Francis Bacon, right back to him. He was at the helm of the secret societies in England and authored his famous book, The New Atlantis. Bacon's book was the blueprint for the colonizing of the United States, advocating that America, listen to this, would become a paradise in which men would follow reason, become gods, and work for a universal world republic that would then replicate the utopian conditions of America throughout the known world. Let's slow that down for a second. So America would become a paradise in which men would follow reason. Now, America is not paradise for many of us. So what is he talking about? Reason, we should understand, is code for, again, this new world, new order of ages. If you watched the video I did on depopulation and population control, you will notice in the Georgia Guidestones, or if you've just ever seen the Georgia Guidestones, you know that they talk about the things that you must do in order to obtain this age of reason. The age of reason is what the goal is. And again, as I tell you, we, children of Yah, the true children of Israel, we are in the way of that goal. We've always been in the way of that goal. And that's why they've tried so many maneuvers in order to get rid of us. But Yah had other plans. Now, it also says that they would become gods. And for a universal world republic that would replicate utopian conditions throughout the world. That's the purpose of America, to give these secret society folks that you never see, give them a divinity. That's what they truly believe. Now, you don't have to believe in that. This is what they believe. That's what you should understand, regardless of what your beliefs are. Now, as a chief Rosicrucians, again, those are the ones who made the Georgia Guidestones. the Rosicrucian and the Grand Master of modern Freemasonry, Bacon sent his followers to the New World. In 1910, Newfoundland stamp with his image upon it reads, Lord Bacon, guiding spirit in the colonization scheme, as we just spoke about. But his influence, Francis Bacon is considered by some to be the real and true founder of America. For centuries, controversy has surrounded this figure who is said to be the illegitimate son of Queen Elizabeth I and a secret author of Shakespeare plays, the man whom Thomas Jefferson considered one of the most influential men in history. In 1733, Rosicrucian Freemasonry formally entered America when the St. John's Lodge was established in Boston. It became a Masonic capital of Britain's colonies. By 1737, there were lodges in Massachusetts, New York, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, all committed to implementing the plan of a utopian new Atlantis. In 1731, Benjamin Franklin became a Rosicrucian Mason, and in 1734, a provincial Grand Master of Pennsylvania. Now, a few things that I want to know about Francis Bacon. I did know about the Shakespearean belief that he's actually Shakespeare. A lot of people have speculated that. I did not know that he's the illegitimate son of Queen Elizabeth I, but if he is, this also relates to a whole nother issue that I think we'll have to talk about, and that is the bloodline families. Namely the monarchs inside the European monarchs. If you do your research on these people, a lot of them say that they are descended from, a lot of them say that they're descended from Christ, which we know is not true, but they make that claim. A lot of these people claim this divinity, and if you do a lot more digging, you find that a lot of the things that they're actually referencing are the Nephilim, but that's something that we'll have to get into in another video. Now, we're going to talk about, the Declaration of Independence. Okay, so Thomas Jefferson, the writer of the Declaration of Independence, he was a Rosicrucian. Hager notes that the federalism that finally united the 13 colonies into the states was identical to the federalism of the Grand Lodge of the Masonic government, which had been created in Anderson's Constitution of 1723, as we spoke about. If you didn't know, the Boston Tea Party was an entirely Masonic event organized by St. Andrew's Lodge in Boston, of which John Hancock and Paul Revere were members, and supported by Virginia Masons Patrick Henry and Richard Henry Lee. After dark on December 17, 1773, at least 120 Masons from St. Andrew's Lodge, disguised as Mohawk Indians, boarded the ships and threw the tea into the harbor, allegedly to protest numerous taxes levied by King George III. Of the 56 signatures on the Declaration of Independence, 9, according to some, 53, according to others, came from Freemasons. The first president, George Washington, again, he was a Freemason and elected Grand Master of the Templar of Alexandria Lodge. According to Hager, during the American Revolution, 31 out of 33 military generals, George Washington included, under George Washington, importantly, the British military leadership, all Masonic. Sir William Howe, Brigadier General Augustine Prevost, 34 colonials were all Freemasons. When the French joined on the side of the Americans, Freemason Marquis de Lafayette trapped General Cornwallis, commander of the British forces at Yorktown. Now, anyone who doubts the Freemasons still control the U.S. government, you should read House Revolution 33. 33, I just told you what 33 is about. 33 being the highest degree of Freemasonry. It says, end quote, recognizing the thousands of Freemasons in every state in the nation and honoring them for their many contributions to the nation throughout history, whereas Freemasons whose long lineage extends back to before the nation's founding have set an example of high moral standards and charity for all the people, whereas the founding fathers of this great nation and signatures of the Constitution, most of whom were Freemasons, provided a well-rounded basis for developing themselves and others into valuable citizens of the United States. This is a law in the United States, House Resolution 33. To talk about the American Revolution part very quickly, that is very significant if you understand not just the American generals, but the British generals. Most of them were Freemasons. Now, when you think both the same side, both are secret societies, was this a spontaneous war? Was the Boston Tea Party a spontaneous action, or was these things being orchestrated by people behind the scenes? See, you sound crazy when you're pointing out things in the here and now, but whenever you look back in history, you can have a more reflective view. Does that narrative make sense? Do you think these secret societies that were on both sides of a war were actually doing what they said they were going to do, or were they doing something for an end or a particular goal that they were both in on? Now, I'm sure many of the soldiers that weren't keen to these operations weren't keen to these agendas, but it doesn't mean that those who were in power did not know exactly what they were doing and actually tried to create this American Republic for a particular purpose. But we're going to talk about one more part of the Founding Fathers, and then we're going to get back to the rest of the article next week. The Founding Fathers, as opposed to the Planting Fathers, rejected all organized religion in favor of deism. They believed, one, in a supreme being, the need to worship that being. The best form of worship was to lead a virtuous life. One must repent, and one must be rewarded and or punished after death. Any religious views contrary to the nature of and reason, such as virgin birth and divine intervention in the affairs of men, is rejected by deism. Again, when people say America's a Christian nation, these people who created America did not follow Yeshua. They did not follow him at all. They did not believe in him. They were deists, and many of them you find out were actually Satanists or Luciferians. Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Paine, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams were all openly deists. George Washington and many other founders posed as Christians, but were clearly deists in their personal writings. The reason the Founding Fathers kept their deism secret and retained the facade of Christianity was to unify the Catholic, Anglican, Puritan settlers into one new nation. They wanted to be sure of having a nation of trusting, passive followers. So religion served as a utilitarian rather than spiritual purpose. Anyone who doesn't believe that the Founding Fathers rejected organized religion should read the Treaty of Tripoli, which literally says in it that the United States government is not in any sense founded on Christian religion. It said in itself, there's no character of enmity against the laws of religion, tranquility of Muslims, and that the state never entered into any war or of action or hostility against a Mohammed nation or Muslim nation. It is declared by the parties that no pretext arises from religious opinion shall ever produce an interruption of the harmony existing between two countries. So again, if America was a Christian country, they would not literally write into a treaty that the United States is by no means a Christian country. So that is where we're going to end this particular segment. I hope that I laid this out for you. Number one, anyone who tells you that America is a Christian country, first of all, I never bought that, just because a real Christian, a follower of Yeshua, that person would not be into slavery, would not be into oppression, would not be into genocide. Yet we know that America is founded on all of those things as well. But on top of all the obvious violence that's been committed in the name of America, we can also see that America was created by people for a very anti-Christ agenda, okay? It was created for a very New World Order agenda. This could never be a country reflective of Yeshua, a country that was for Yeshua. It was never, ever that, and anyone who tells you that it is either ignorant or they're willingly lying to you. So we should be very, very staunch about what America is in world history. America, I don't say it's Babylon just for fun. It literally is created as the country that's going to oversee the New World Order, or the world turning and transitioning to this New World Order government. So with that, we're going to end this video. I hope that was insightful. I will see you all in the next
we have now stepped forward to have a discussion about the black male secret society known as Sigma Pi Phi, acronym the Boule, B-O-U-L-E. Much of our black press, as much as we like it, has not been honest in talking about this group of black men, for they respect it very highly and never speak negatively against it. We also know that we've had many black people who've been a member of it and have never ever broken the code or the creed and spoken to one who was a non-member. So they pledge and swear that their goal is to represent you, you will have a hard time believing it when they don't even seek to let you know that they who help you are. And so, in July 17th, 1990, July 18th, 1990, the Los Angeles Times did a front page story on the left column about elite fraternity of black men. Excuse me, brother. I should be on. I saw that one get away. I'm just shaming myself. I stand back here. This elite fraternity of black men were described in the article as being influential, as being somewhat like Skull and Bones at Yale. And as it said these things, I was a little in awe, as the others, brothers in African Minds United and the Coalition Against Black Exploitation, as we all were intrigued by the fact that this group of men could have been in existence and we not know about them. And even other brothers and sisters. I remember talking to a brother who had been National Executive Secretary of Sigma, Phi Beta Sigma, been in fraternity land 37 years, had heard nothing of the Boule ever, though its founder had been a member. And so, as we began to talk about it with other people around the country, we began to realize that people didn't know about it. How you doing, Brother Warren? And did not know that people didn't know about it. We just assumed that it was incidental, that everybody must know something about it, and that it was not mysterious or connected to all of those other things we had previously been talking about, like Cecil Rhodes and Baron de Rothschild and all the Halls of Haters, the ADL and the Diamond Jewish Connection. We've been talking about the Trilateral Commission, who is responsible for this economic summit that you'll be seeing on TV the next 3-4 days. You need to know that. Anybody? Carl Rowan came on the radio right here in LA. And my friends jumped him, because we jumping them in every city. And when they jumped him, he said the Trilateral Commission ain't done nothing. But the Trilateral Commission went to the president and had him set up the annual economic summit starting in '76, France. So when you listen to how your destiny of your country, they say, rides on that meeting, you wonder how Warren could make such an allegation, but knowing as a Boule in Washington, D.C. Epsilon chapter, his goal is to never speak of the high, white, and mighty whom the Boule, all 3,300, are sworn to protect. Yes, these brothers that we are pushing up against the wall have taken a sworn oath that they will never expose the whites that they know actually run the world. They, in ambition and in deference to liberation and respect of the race, have agreed to maintain the status quo of white supremacy, which has two levels of white supremacy: a local, limited, parochial side, the Ku Klux Klan, the Reardons, the Kenny Hans, the local clans, but as a powerful, more mighty upper crust, which probably would include Occidental Petroleum and Arco and Exxon and Mobil Oil and the Rockefeller Foundation and other influential, wealthy families and institutions. So what we're talking about is, why haven't you heard of those people who are in the secret society? It's because the people who you look to, who you would most suspect would tell you, have sworn that they never will. And because of that, that leaves the sub-leadership, the other group of people that you like a lot, that leaves them to tell you, the heads of the various organizations as you know them. But if you listen to them, they have never said of these black men, for that they did not know. Which means that Malcolm, we know, knew of these men. We know Marcus Garvey knew of these men, because their crowning, most outstanding achievement was the physical elimination and castigation of Marcus Garvey and the insistence and the climate setting that brought about the death of Malcolm X. This is the original LA Times article. Everybody see that? Yeah. Did you see that when it ran in 1990? Yeah. You did see it. No, you didn't see it. What's the date on it? That's July 18th, 1990. Elite fraternity widens agenda of black men. This is the original article that came out on the Boule that we just casually discussed here at the Good Life, which led to this penetration. Because by the time Brother Oswald gets up and starts decodifying a little of that symbolism, you will see that we have in fact cracked a riddle that has contained our people. Our people have been contained by an organized element of secret people who have used riddles, mysteries, and secret societies to jam us. And what we are doing is we are unlocking or decodifying the mystery, because once decodified and exposed, those who are secret in the light will not be as effective. Because what we found out is that when you're a skull and bones, when you go over, you're called a knight. And the knight is symbolic of the knight of the round table. And that round table is the code word or the buzzword for an upper secret society that's in a book called Anglo-American Establishment, written by Carol Quigley. And in that book, he said in the opening that secret society of which the Rhodes Scholars come from is known as several names. This society has been known at various times as Milner's Kindergarten, as the Round Table Group. Okay, just hold it right there. Look at that page a second if you can read it, because that page is very significant to the discussion of who it is might be the ones that the Boule has to cover for. In other words, they're covering for something. Now we know whatever they're covering for is beastly. Check. In the book by Mary Palmer Hall on the flower, plant, fruits, and trees, there was a tree showing the Knights of the Round Table. What I thought was interesting when I looked at the tree carefully is that in your mind we always thought about the tree in 12. But if you look carefully, it says the tree of the Knights of the Round Table, you find out that there are 1 knight, 2 knights, 3 knights, 4 knights, 5 knights, 6 knights, 7 knights, 8 knights, 9 knights. Those 9 represent the symbolic 9 that's used in the Grecian Sphinx, which we'll be talking about shortly. Now we're going to show from that eulogy of Charles Wesley's. In that same book, that same night, we found this in tribute to Wesley. Look carefully at the wordage. I'll give you a second to read it. Table round. You find that for some reason they take Alfred Lord Tennyson and put him on the left side and put Wesley on the right side. The only thing is similar in both discussions is the damn word round table. Model for a mighty world. What's that in the man's hand? What's that in the man's hand? Brother Quasi, does that have any symbolism there, that little spike with the light on it?
Oh, yes, sir.
What would that mean?
Prometheus. Prometheus is the one who stole the light. All the Greeks had to pass burning sands. Burning sands was coming across from the hair to Mount Olympus, where the light was from Ethiopia. That's why we got the Statue of Liberty, because the French gave America the Statue of Liberty because they're the land base. So they got the new light.
We just heard from Carol Quigley, who talked about the top of the white secret societies. And he says it's known by several names, which you knew that anything you ever read on the Illuminati says we will have numerous names. You will not know it as one name. It does not even go under the name Illuminati. That is that Illuminati you've been looking for. Oh, round table. That's it. And the Boule will never acknowledge knowledge of it because it's their goal to protect it and keep it secret. Maybe that's why they didn't want to tell us who they were, because then we'd have to say, well, what are you doing standing there?